Hello, everyone. I'm Louise Castanhedo and I'm here to tell you the latest on the backstage of the planetary transition. And today, everyone, we're going to talk about a very interesting subject, which is the extermination of all evil on the planet. But first, let's play the intro. So, everyone, let's start our video with great joy, as always, where I like to greet you all, wishing you much health, much peace, much harmony in your lives and, above all, much hope. And also, everyone, I continue to ask you to pray. Keep praying, asking for peace on the planet, for your vision in the physical awakening operation, for the operation of the aftermath of the lost souls there in the crust and in the thresholds. And also, everyone, I ask you to pray for the cities of Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo and Brasilia, which were the headquarters of stations of discord and, for this reason, a very high amount of deleterious energy still remains in these cities. But with everyone's prayers, this energy can indeed be completely transmuted into good energy, energy of peace. Okay? That's why it's important for us to pray. It works really well, guys. It works really well. But just look at this extraordinary subject, the extermination of all evil on the planet. It almost seems like something out of a dream, right? But this, guys, will happen when the peak of the planetary transition happens. Many miasmas and bad energies will be transmuted into good energies. The benign network and the heart of the earth will be in charge of purifying them. Look how good this is. And then the entity reminded me about the crystals decoded by Master Jesus. I've already told you about this. And there's even a video here on the channel that talks about this decoding of the crystals, which our Lord Jesus Christ has already done for us for planetary protection. And then the entity said, look, these decoded crystals will come into action at this moment. Look how interesting, guys. And he said, look. These crystals were decoded into wonderful and vast energy that formed a large energetic bed under the planet's soil, okay? So this energetic mattress will trap and transmute the bad energies emitted by the dark beings at the time of their capture, as well as transmute the energy of fear and despair of unprepared incarnate and discarnate human beings, who will think that these events are the end of the world, okay? So, all these energies added together will cause a great density in the planetary psychosphere. And due to this density, these energies will gravitate towards the interior of the planet, where they will then fall into this energetic mantle, into this energetic sea above the planet's soil, being immediately transmuted into beneficial energy. And this energy will then migrate to the planet's energetic pores, right? Emerging and further strengthening the planet's benign network. So, for those who are just joining the channel, I recommend that you watch the videos about the deleterious network, where we explain the whole issue of planetary pores, how this network worked, how this network was dismantled by the grace of God Almighty, but there is still some energy left that needs to be transmuted by the planet, right? So I highly recommend, folks, for those who are just joining, to take a look at all the videos on the channel, because they are all numbered sequentially, okay? The ideal would be to start with number 1 and go from there. And for those who are in a hurry, because we already have almost 200 videos, for those who are in a hurry to learn, sorry, buy the book, because the books, especially number 1 and number 2, explain all these aspects very well. So, in a quicker way, you can have access to all this information, but it's up to each one. We have the videos and we also have the books. And there's also a personal playlist here on the channel called Louie Respond, where a series of questions are asked. They're short videos, they're shorts, and in that minute I'll give several answers on various subjects, okay? So guys, the information is there, just take a look and you'll find out, okay? Because many of the things I talk about here in the videos may sound strange to those who are just starting out. So, it would be interesting if you did some research on these subjects to get a better understanding and be able to understand everything that's being said, right? Because there's no way to keep repeating these subjects all the time, right? So, guys, this whole issue of this energy that was created, let's say, it was decoded by our Christ as a It's an energy, let's say, auxiliary that was placed by our beloved Christ under the soil of the planet and that, from what I understand, it forms a mantle, an energetic mantle. So, as these bad energies penetrate the soil towards the core of the planet, they will fall into this kind of energetic mattress that our Lord Jesus Christ created. And this energy mattress will have the power to transmute these energies from bad ones into a very good vibration for the planet, okay? And the entity continued explaining, and said, "Look, this process will last some time until the entire psychosphere is clean and in the vibratory pattern corresponding to a world of regeneration." Because, people, we are migrating, we are already on the last step, the last stage of the world of atonement and trials, right? And we are already, lifting our feet there to place our feet on the next step, which will be the first step of regeneration. But for this change to be made, there will be a need for an elevation in the vibratory pattern of the planet and ours too, right? And whoever does not have this vibratory pattern, matching the vibratory pattern of the planet, will be exiled. They have to be exiled to a place more suited to the vibratory pattern of the being in question. This, people, just to make a bad comparison, I already explained, is like a person who has photophobia, so the greater their photophobia, the darker the room where they will feel comfortable should be, right? You're not going to take someone who has photophobia and put them on the beach on a beautiful sunny day, and of course, they're going to die from eye pain, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to have to take them off the beach and take them to a room, leave them in the dark, and the greater their degree of photophobia, the darker that room should be so that they feel comfortable. So, folks, it's the same thing with spirits. Depending on the spirit's vibrational pattern, they will feel more comfortable on a planet with more or less light, depending on what their vibration is. This is a very interesting question, isn't it? And finally, if our beloved Christ had not decoded all these crystals, these bad energies would have deepened into the heart of the planet, bringing great planetary convulsions with serious consequences for all incarnate beings on the planet. Divine mercy is abundant, abundant and wonderful. And both Jesus and God the Almighty Father want us all to evolve without suffering or with the least possible suffering. Folks, this is divine mercy. This story of a vengeful God who screws and kills. That, folks, doesn't exist. God is not that. God is love. God is peace. God loves His creation. He wants us to be happy. He wants us to evolve, right? That's it, folks. And continuing, right, like in this whole process, like after the peak, right, of the planetary transition, which will be, you already know that I've already told you, that it will consist of the blackout plus the physical awakening operation. After all this happens, we will be freed from the dark beings, mainly the dark disembodied ones who will already be on their way to exile. Who will be left, folks? There will only be a few dark incarnates who will soon be removed from their positions of power and influence. You already know that we've already explained that. In fact, we have a video here on the channel that talks about it. What will happen to the dark incarnates who are left after Michael the Archangel's operation? Okay. Well, as for decoding crystals, science will still discover that crystals, in general, have a large amount of energy inside them and that they can also be used as large repositories of information, true quantum computers. And only now is humanity timidly beginning to discover these things. And if you are enjoying the content of this video, please, guys, give it a like, click the bell, share the video with your friends, and if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please give us the joy of your subscription. Become an agent of light. Well, our Christ, the connoisseur and scientist that he is, knows how to extract this energy from crystals in a clean way, without destroying the physical shell that contains it, which is something we do not know how to do, okay? When we manage to extract the energy from an atom, it is usually accompanied by a huge explosion. Well, Christ knows how to extract this energy without exploding anything. That, folks, is technology, He has very high technology, right? And the entity continued speaking, saying, "Look, only a being with your capacity and wisdom can do this so quickly and in the large quantity required." For those who think that Christ only understands sheep, goats, and mustard seeds, you are very, very mistaken, okay? He is a brilliant scientist and thinker, with excellent intellectual and energetic capacity, and he teaches everyone with gentleness and affection. In addition to all this fantastic capacity that he has, he is gentle at heart, he is good, right? He is humble, right? Something that we have a lot to learn from him, right? And finally, in truth, we have no idea of the being that is our beloved Christ, people. He is truly spectacular. And he is, look, good news, he is, our Christ, satisfied with the progress of the planning that he made for the planetary transition. The thresholds are being cleared of lost entities, which is this operation to rescue souls that I have been talking to you about, right? And these entities have been rescued, folks, with great success, okay? Through the wonderful mission carried out by the Brothers of Light here on the planet itself, right? And Christ, in his mercy, plans for as many of these beings as possible to be rescued from the thresholds and from the earth's crust. That's why he asked for another rescue operation to be carried out. Yes, I even say, every now and then, I'm asking you to pray, right? Together with the group of Thomas' children. For what? So that more of these souls can be rescued. Who are these souls, folks? They are the souls of good-hearted people, but who are completely unprepared from a spiritual point of view. So, what happens? Many of them, due to complete ignorance, sometimes don't even know that they have disincarnated, and are left there, poor things, lost, not understanding what is happening, somewhat desperate. So, it is this group of souls that is being rescued by the planetary spiritual team. Everything, folks, at the request of our beloved Christ. You see how they think of us, right? Something like that is very beautiful, right? And why did Christ ask for these souls to be rescued and taken to the spiritual colonies? Because when the operation of Archangel Michael takes place and the Dark Ones are captured and exiled, there will be a great reduction, people, in the umbral fields of the planet, which will enter into a true collapse, people, crumbling and disappearing. That is why, people, the Dark Ones are saying that their universe is collapsing, because this phenomenon, people, is already occurring in the densest umbrals of the planet, where great earthquakes and collapses are already happening. This, people, I am talking from the point of view of the astral plane, okay? Don't think that the planet is going to enter into an earthquake, that it will end, that is not it. I am referring here, people, to the astral plane of the planet. You know that the astral plane has various degrees of density according to the density of its inhabitants. So, the darker the spirit, the worse it is, the lower in the astral plane it goes, okay? They are very dense astral planes, with very little light. Yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated, okay? Well, guys, of course, right? As I said, we're referring to the astral plane, the lowest density astral dimension on the planet, where the famous locusts are located, which are the shelters of the dark elite, because, as they are dark, they can't stand each other either. So, what did they do? When they ended up in that dense threshold, they divided that dense astral plane among themselves and into territories. And they call each territory, locus, okay? And there each archon established his residence, okay? But what's happening, guys? That heavier threshold is already starting to collapse, because as the thresholds on the planet are going to end, this movement is coming from the densest to the least dense, okay? And all this collapse is causing these dark brothers to come out of their hiding places, making them more susceptible to capture by Archangel Michael when his operation begins, okay? So, the fewer sons of Thomas we have hanging around in the threshold, the better, right, guys? Because it's like there's a chute out there and the passerby is passing by, right? That's why Jesus asked our spirituality to do this great work of rescuing these lost souls who are in the threshold of the planet so that they don't also end up at the mercy of these very dark beings who are escaping from these denser places and they are fleeing because everything is collapsing. They are coming to the Earth's crust. Okay? So, the issue is delicate, right? The dense thresholds will start to collapse completely, especially at the beginning of Archangel Michael's operation. Guys, they will collapse in such a terrible way. And it's Michael the Archangel, you know, right, that he's our beautiful and serene Archangel who takes care of celestial discipline. Of course, folks, all archangels have wonderful qualities, they all do healing, but among them, they have preferences for work and these preferences are respected. And in the case of Michael the Archangel, he takes care of discipline, right? And he is equipped with great power and great serenity. He actually has great compassion for the dark creatures, because he knows that sooner or later, all these beings will turn to the light. However, he needs to be strict with these beings. Why? So that there is due respect for celestial decisions. Because this group of dark ones, folks, has no edge. They, you know, have no respect for anything or anyone. So, he has to be a good being, with a good heart. But there, folks, he has to be strict, he has to be assertive, okay? And he has all of that, right? Well, and he will, folks, conduct this entire operation masterfully. The truth of each person, of each being, will be completely exposed by him and by the legion of light that accompanies him, which are the Knights Templar, so that these dark beings will receive severe but merciful treatment. But no deception, no lie or attempt at hypnotism or fascination will work with these legions of light. Because the beings that make up this legion of light are very, very prepared, they are very evolved and experienced, especially in these operations, because this type of phenomenon, folks, these planetary transitions, they happen on all planets. This is a divine law. And these teams act and work with Archangel Michael, they act precisely in these processes of planetary transition. And then, folks, of course I asked who I was having the honor of talking to. And then, folks, I had a wonderful, very pleasant surprise. Do you know who it is? The entity that is giving us this message is our dear Tiberius, our Knight Templar, who came here more than once and with great affection gave us a lot of information. He is a wonderful entity that I have become very attached to. Wow, I love Tiberius. And then I found out that Tiberius, who I thought was one of the members of the team of light that serves Michael the Archangel, I discovered that he is actually the commander, people, of the Knights Templar, right? In other words, the humility of these beings is something like that, it is fantastic. And then I was very happy, my heart even beat faster, you know, with joy, because I really like him and I thought he would not come back to give messages anymore, because, due to the nature of his work, which is something. Imagine the amount of measures he has to take for this operation to be successful, right? And I was very happy and he said, yes, I am here again just to give this message. And then at the time I was recording the series about Yahweh and Jesus, which has the playlist I already told you about. And since he was the one who dictated all this content, I asked him, right? I asked him if he liked the videos, if he thought they were in line with what he had taught, with the teachings, right? And he said yes, that he was satisfied and that yes, I was able to pass on the information correctly, right? So I was really, really happy, right, that he approved, right, the work that was done. And because it is one of the concerns I have, right, guys, is to pass on to you the information I receive in the purest way possible, without interference from my ego, without egoistic interference from me, right? So that is a concern. I always pray a lot. I ask a lot to our little Mother Mary Most Holy, who is the protector of our work here, so that I can pass this information on to you in the most correct way possible, right? So, he said, look, my dear, wait, because soon we will be here to free you all from these brothers who are stuck in the darkness. Because that's exactly it, right, guys? Well, I've already made that comparison for you. It's like we were in a class and there were 30 students, and there were 5 of them causing terror in the room, right? Playing around, guys, how are the others going to be able to study? How are the others going to be able to concentrate? That's hard. So, when these 5 don't want to study and don't want to pay attention in class and disrespect everyone, break windows, they have to be removed from the room. That's what's going to happen, guys. All the dark beings who have passed away here on the planet will be removed by Archangel Michael, okay? Since they don't want to go into exile voluntarily, they don't want to continue on their path of moral evolution, they have to be removed, people, so that the rest can continue in peace, follow their evolutionary path calmly, right? So I was very grateful, gosh, for his presence, because I didn't imagine he would come back again. No, I didn't think so, it was a wonderful surprise, right? And I thanked him very much for that. And he, as always, right, with the humility that they have, right, he said, no, we thank you for your affection and now we're going because we still have some measures to take. Most of the measures have already been taken, everything is ready. So much so that I allowed myself the luxury, speaking, of returning once more and now we're going. And then he left. People, I was very, very happy because he is an entity, a wonderful person. He is the right hand of Michael the Archangel, he's wonderful. And then Tiberides left, right, and signed the message, right, signed Tiberides, Knight Templar, General Commander and he left. And then our dear captain came, right, he always comes, he always makes a stop, because I asked him to do so a lot and then he commented, right, he said, look, did you see how much joy there is today, my daughter? You were rewarded with the honorable visit of your parents in this incarnation and, later, the luminous visit of Tiberius, General Commander of the entire Legion of Knights Templar, a being of great light, who is the right hand of Michael the Fair, right? Quote. And just like you, we here on the Second Empire team, which is the team that supports me, thought he would not come here anymore, but to our great surprise and joy, He here gives us more precious information about this extraordinary moment in which we are living. And I hadn't told you, but at the beginning of the session before Barry came, I received the information and I felt the presence of my dear parents, my father and my mother here in this incarnation. And it was very emotional, guys. I cried a lot. It's wonderful to work like this, guys, for the light. It's something that gives us a wonderful return. It's wonderful. So, I think that if the dark beings knew how good it is to work for the light, they would stop being dark like this, right away, because the affection that we receive from spirituality is really good. These awards, these contacts, guys, with such elevated entities, with beings that we love, right? Yes, it's really really beautiful, it's really worth it, right? And then the captain said to me, "Ah, is that the image that you saw?" Because guys, I woke up one day here in the Na during the week and I woke up with an image like that, you know? One image is of a young, handsome guy, and I saw this image and said, "Guys, this is the captain. This is the captain," quote, and I said, "Is this image I saw of you?" And he confirmed. He said, "Yes, it is. Yes, it was." And we know that your memories are a little more confused, but somehow you managed to retain my image in your incarnate mind. Because, at night when we're sleeping, we go out, we have our contacts, we meet our friends. I've even made a video about it. We see our friends, we meet our loved ones, we meet our mentors too. It's really cool, right? But when we wake up, when we return to our physical body, we forget, it's erased. It stays in the subconscious. But the conscious mind can't register it, right? And somehow I found a way to register the image of our dear captain. And look, I'm already building his image through artificial intelligence, which came out very similar. I just need to fix some details in his uniform that the intelligence didn't bring in the right way. But when I finish, I'll publish it on the website, you'll see it. Quote. Stay, everyone will know who our beloved captain is. So that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed learning all about this. I'm Louise Castanhedo and I hope to see you in the next episode here on this channel. See you then. Hello, everyone. I'm Louise Castanhedo and I'm here to tell you the latest on the backstage of the planetary transition. And today, everyone, we're going to talk about what awaits the dark elite in their destiny in exile. And today's chapter, the episode is going to be more intense, let's say. But before I tell you all that, let's play the intro. So, let's start our episode today, as always, with great joy, where I like to greet all of you, wishing you all much peace, much health, much harmony in your families, in your work, in your relationships, and also, folks, wishing you much hope in this world of regeneration that is coming, folks. And it won't be long before this world arrives. Several events have been happening. We've recently had several blackouts that occurred in Europe, in Indonesia, in Bali, in Central America, in Puerto Rico. These are warnings, folks, that are being given by the spiritual world to better prepare the populations for when the blackout event comes. Precisely so that people are not afraid. Do not think that it is the end of the world, that the world is going to end. That it is nothing like that, folks, nothing like that. There is no reason to be afraid. All we need to do is prepare properly, prepare calmly for the event, okay, folks? And I also have some news to tell you. Hey, we have already managed to publish our 4th book, okay? I'll even show it to you here. Look, look. So, look, it is already available to you at Club dos Autores. Hey, the link is already here in the video description, okay? So, this book is very interesting, because it deals precisely with this issue of revelations. Here we talk about the adolescence of our beloved Christ, how he was conceived, how he incarnated here on the planet to help us. It also talks about the delicate issue of Yahweh, who is the true Lord, boss, coordinator of the dark elite on the planet and not Lucifer, as he always made us believe, right? Well, it's not that Lucifer was a good guy, you know, guys. Lucifer really had his moral evolution problems, but he was never the boss of the dark elite, okay? He was one of the powerful commanders there, but the one behind it all was another being. Anyway, all these issues are here in this book. If you're curious, or want to learn more, here's our work, folks. As I always say, all the resources, the profits that are made, both from the sale of the books and from the YouTube channel itself. Well, these profits, folks, are entirely donated to institutions that help people. Well, all these profits have also been invested in the fight against polio on the planet so that we can eradicate this terrible disease that leaves children paralyzed. Anyway, we try to help with everything that comes up, okay, guys? So, here's the book and let's go to our video because it's very, very, very interesting. Well, the person who gave this message, guys, was a highly evolved being. And when I asked who I was talking to, having the honor of talking to, he introduced himself, he said, "Look, you're talking to Zinio, I'm a being of the high planetary spirituality who has been working for you, for your evolution since the beginning of civilization. I came here to this beautiful planet at the invitation of the beloved Christ. And I had the honor of being part of the original planetary team of this planet, okay? Because it's like this, people, the Christs, when they receive the planets, they immediately form their teams, right, to help develop all the necessary work for, first, preparing the planet to receive life. The evolution of the beings of this life in all its kingdoms, from the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom and, finally, the human kingdom. And so, the Christs have these wonderful teams that work on these issues, because for these beings it is also a very wonderful opportunity for evolution. And God the Father, in His mercy, allows everyone to participate in these great processes of evolution within the universe. I think this is really, really beautiful, right? It's not that Christ doesn't have the ability to do everything by himself. He does, he has the power to do it, people. Our Christ, he is such a spectacular being and he could do everything by himself, but within the principle of mercy. So he invites other beings so that they can also come and practice good, working in divine creation. Throughout the universe, right, people? This is really beautiful, right? And this entity continued explaining about his mission, right? And he said, "Look, we helped Jalos transform a hostile environment on the planet that was still fiery, that is, still in a primitive state of fire, right? A ball of fire into a habitable place. And we also helped establish the plant and animal kingdoms, and later the human kingdom, okay? That's clear, folks. For those who are just arriving on the channel, I highly recommend that you please watch the channel's playlist here that talks about Jah. It's important that you watch it so that you can understand what I'm going to put here in this video, which I won't be able to explain all the time, because these are very complex subjects. It would take a lot of time and it's all already recorded. We already have all this information recorded on video, so whoever wants to understand better, please, I ask that you consult the playlist Jave and Jesus that is here on the channel, okay? Very well. Well, and this entity she continues explaining. She said, of course Jave and his dark team have never seen us because of their very low vibrational standard, but we were there from the beginning, like in a correctional colony. They started arriving later, when the planet was already stabilized, everything, right? Quote. The first prisoners to retrace their evolutionary paths, smoothing out the edges of their spiritual deformities with blood, sweat and tears caused by the trials and expiations they had to go through in order to work on their evolutionary issue. And he spoke about the law of physical plasmation. He said that the law of physical plasmation is the solution, the way to cleanse the paraspirits of creatures. So, guys, you already know, because I've already told you this, that we, roughly speaking, are composed of the physical body, the paraspirit, which is a semi-material envelope that makes the connection between the physical body and the monad, or divine spark, or spirit, or soul. Anyway, each one gives it a name that they think is most appropriate, okay? And the perispirit, it is composed of the semi-matter of the planet where the being is interning, it is doing its process of evolution. So, when you change planet, you have to leave your perispirit on the planet you are leaving, because it is composed of semi-matter from that planet, okay? Well, the perispirit also works as a kind of blotter. Maybe it's so that people nowadays don't even know what a blotter is, right? But we are the ones who are older. And in our time we still wrote with fountain pens back in elementary school. Back then people lie, right? And the ink from the fountain pen stayed fresh. So we wouldn't stain our notebooks. We used the so-called famous blotter, which you put on top like this. It absorbed the excess ink and the notebook was okay. It didn't get smudged, right? Then, of course, came the ballpoint pens that closed that chapter in the history of students, right? Because it was a torment to be able to keep your notebook tidy and clean, without smudging, right? It was a challenge for kids, right? But anyway, getting back to the subject of the perispirit, what happens according to the law of physical plasmation? It's all the deformities that the perispirit accumulates. Because it's like this, you act on the planet, you do good things and you also do things that aren't so good because you're in that learning process. So it's like this, you try out paths, some are good and others aren't. And when you make a choice that goes against the divine laws of love, giving in consideration for others, right, of love for your neighbor, that attitude that is not positive, it becomes marked in your perispirit. And your perispirit begins to show deformities. And what is the form of evolution at this stage when we are still connected to matter? It's through physical plasmation. So when you incarnate, your perispirit brings to the physical body. It forms in the physical body those deformities that you accumulated through incorrect attitudes, right? And that's why we have the origin of diseases, physical deformities, etc. Well, it doesn't mean that, for example, every physical deformity is a form of transformation. Sometimes it can even be a mission of humility, etc. But anyway, people, in the vast majority of people, these issues are related to the transformation of the deformities that we accumulate in a process, people, natural to evolution, and it's not to be like, oh my God, I'm horrible, I'm terrible, nothing like that, people. God creates all the monads simple and ignorant, but destined for the light. And He gives the law of freedom. Then each one follows their own path to evolve. Each one goes at their own pace. Some go faster, they already know, right? They're smarter and move faster towards the light. Others take longer. Anyway, each one has their own pace and evolves, okay? Very well. Well, and this entity spoke, and then continued talking a little more about Yahweh, who is the leader of the dark elite, right, who pretended to be God in ancient times. That's why we have all these discrepancies that we see in the Old Testament, especially in the Old Testament, right? And then in the New Testament Christ came to put things in order, because things were complicated. But if you've read the biblical texts, well, there are some things. There are wonderful things. Messages that really came from the heavenly team, like, for example, the 10 Commandments. The message is wonderful. And, at the same time, you have other messages from a warrior god, a bloodthirsty god who ordered extermination, as we see in Deuteronomy, for example, where Yahweh asks Joshua, that Joshua, when he enters the promised land, is to level the cities that are there, not to leave any living being with breath. Look, people, this is not something from God, right? Is it? God is love, God is justice, God wants the best for everyone. God would never order anyone to kill anyone, you know? And we see this a lot in the Old Testament. Why? Because in fact, the one who manifested himself there was Jah. Okay? Just a quick taster, once again I say, if you want to know more about this, please watch the playlist of Jahwe and Jesus. Or if you prefer to read, if you like to read, buy this last book, Revelations, where everything is explained there, right? Well, continuing, right, Zinio said the following, that when Yahweh chose not to incarnate here on the planet, what happened? He greatly overloaded his perispirit, right? Because he just acquired deformities due to the various evils, right, that he commanded and did here on the planet. And by not incarnating, he was not purifying his perispirit. So this kept accumulating until it reached a point where he recently collapsed. His perispirit collapsed because it had become so tainted and rotten. Guys, it's a very complicated thing. And his dark team, his top henchmen, who are Vernu and Shiva, also adopted this terrible decision of not wanting to incarnate. And it won't be long before these beings collapse too, okay? Because there is a lot of evil accumulated over many millions of years. Because all these beings, as I've already told you, arrived here on the planet exiled from their orbs due to the many evils they committed. And they didn't even deserve to go to a primitive planet, right? Since they didn't deserve to do that, they were sent to a planet in an earlier stage, still in formation, a ball of fire, okay. So they've been here on Earth for at least 4 billion years, which is more or less the age of the planet, okay. Unfortunately, they haven't learned anything in all this time. They've been there, insisting on wanting to evolve. And now, what's going to happen in this new planetary transition that's going to happen, because we're going to move from a world of atonement and trials to a world of regeneration, they'll be exiled from the planet again. But now they'll be exiled in a more complicated condition. Much more complicated, right? And hey, look, pay attention to what Zinio is going to say now. He said, that's where the part comes in, right? He said, the solution for these beings is a harsh and severe treatment of energetic detoxification of evil and a succession of mandatory reincarnations so that the law of physical plasmation can alleviate their deformities. In other words, to evolve, you don't have to, my foot hurts, people, you have to reincarnate. Reincarnation, matter is extremely important for our evolution, okay? So, even though they, here on planet Earth they, had the freedom to choose not to incarnate on the planet, in this next orb, that will not happen anymore. Why? Because they did not know how to make good use of the freedom they received. They did not use it for their evolution, right? So, in view of this freedom will be temporarily confiscated from them, okay? And there is an energetic explanation for this, right? And then they say, he said that spirituality expects that the initial period of draining of dark energies occurs while the planet to which they will be exiled, because they will be exiled again to a planet that is in the initial stages of formation, okay? In other words, they will have to repeat the whole lesson again, right? And what spirituality expects is that this initial draining of all this bad energy that they have accumulated, that it will happen while this planet cools down until the planet becomes minimally habitable, okay? This draining of this horrible energy that they have, will happen through the madness that will dominate them. Because what will happen? They created it, they are because, they are bad. But they are very intelligent, they are very old. And then, they created some equipment, I'm talking about all this, guys, on the astral level, okay? They created equipment capable of blocking consciousness, okay? Why does that happen? When God creates us, He places two things in us. First is consciousness, okay? Consciousness and a code of values embedded in that consciousness. And this code will blossom as the being elevates, okay? As he gains the ability to decode this list of values that is inserted into him. So the conscience is there. When you do something wrong, the conscience appears. It appears and says, look, this isn't right, look, go ahead and fix it, don't continue down this path. And many people try to silence this conscience. And in the case of Jave and his cronies, this has reached such an extraordinary level that they have created this equipment that they use, as if it were a hat. They disguise the equipment under an electronic hat that works on this issue, so to speak, silencing the conscience. But what will happen when they are exiled here from Earth and go to this orb of exile? They will have to leave here on the planet the paraspirit that they received and also all this paraphernalia of equipment that they created also with the same semi-matter here on the planet. And what will happen when they lose this equipment? Their conscience will be unlocked. And the moment they come face to face with their own conscience, they will go crazy. That's what will happen. They're going to go crazy in a terrible way, okay? And from the moment that happens, okay? Well, through this madness that they're going to have, they're going to start draining these dark energies, okay? So, what is the spirituality of this new planet waiting for, right? They said, these dark energies that these beings are going to distill there on the new planet, they're going to mix with the incandescent elements of the planet, where they're later going to solidify, becoming planetary minerals, thus crystallizing these energies of terrible vibrational content. Because you know, guys, it's Lavoisier's law, right? Nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. It's the so-called celestial economy. So, when you have an energy, it can even be transmuted, but it doesn't cease to exist, okay? And in the case of these beings, they have accumulated so much negative energy, that when they drain this energy, it will transform into minerals and solidify there in the soil of this planet where they are going, right? And he explained it like this, he said, look, due to the low-frequency vibrational content, these energies will be very dense and they will gravitate towards the center, towards the core of the planet, where they will never be able to be explored by humanity that comes to live there. In the future, God is wonderful and always foresees a way to mitigate and transmute evil. This is fantastic. And he continued explaining, he said, after this draining phase, when these beings are exhausted of this evil energy, they will then be ready, they will be able to receive a new paraspirit made with the semi-matter of this planet where they are going, so to speak. That this new paraspirit that they will receive will still assume a good degree of deformities, but they will be deformities that will be able to be molded into their physical bodies, that is, they will be able to mold their defective physical bodies, but they will be able to do it. Because the way it is today, the concentration of energy is so bad, it's so bad, that the physical body would not even be able to form itself to be able to do this plasming. That's why they have to go through this period of energy drainage first, guys, okay? So that they can then have the minimum conditions for reincarnation, for production in a physical body, for being able to receive a new paraspirit, okay? And then they will be forced to reincarnate over and over again until the law of physical plasming does its cleansing work, okay? So, yeah, and at that moment, okay, when all this happens, the intelligence of these beings will be hindered due to the misuse they made of it here on planet Earth, okay? Well, then, right? When their spirits are clean, they will then restart their evolutionary process, but they will all be closely monitored by the spiritual world. At the slightest appearance of the germ of evil, their intelligence will once again be hindered until they manage to free themselves from the vicious circle of bad thoughts and actions. So, people, this is a very serious matter. It is very serious, because God is mercy. God is love, but if the being persists in remaining in the darkness, in not wanting to evolve, God will take a heavy hand. He will take a heavy hand to make this creature realize that he is on the wrong path, okay? So it is a very serious matter. They will go through very severe treatment, people, very severe indeed, right? And Zin continued explaining. He said, "Look, my daughter, the treatment given to these beings will have to be serious and severe, because the psychopathy they display is serious and severe, okay? In other words, all these beings that make up the dark elite, they are psychopaths, people, with a card, okay? With a card. Very, very severe psychopathy. And how are you going to awaken one of these beings? There's no way around it. It has to be a very serious treatment so that they can detoxify themselves from this terrible energy that they have accumulated over all these billions of years, right? Because in fact they have been here on the planet for billions of years. Unfortunately, they were unable to take advantage of this opportunity because they never really wanted to walk towards the light, to evolve, right? Well, the good news is that for all monads, all souls, spirits, the destiny of the light is reserved. In their case, it will just take longer, but they will eventually get there, okay? And if you are enjoying the content of this video, please like it, click the bell, and share it. The video with friends, and if you are not yet registered, please give us the pleasure of your registration. Become an agent of light, because you will be helping to spread, people, the good news of the world of regeneration. The path that each one will follow is the choice of each being, okay? And only destiny is right, which is the light. So, when we are created, we are already created simple and ignorant, yes, but we are all destined for the light. Evolution, as I always say, people, is a vector that goes, it runs in a single direction, from the shadows to the light. And it is one of the divine, primordial laws of God the Eternal Father, right? And Zinni continued, right, speaking. He says, that is why the most intelligent soon realize this and choose to follow the paths of light, saving themselves unnecessary pain and suffering, right? And then I started thinking, I said, wow, what a lesson I am having, that we are all having, right? Right? And he answered, he said, oh, I'm glad you like knowing that, my daughter. We really liked it because you are very curious and want to know everything about your father's work. Quote. And it's true, guys. Wow, I love knowing these things, and I really like sharing all of this with you so that we can all have a broader understanding, right? That now we have maturity, we have a certain technological knowledge that allows us to receive more detailed explanations about what is really happening, right? And as always, right, they are very humble, right, they are beings like that, wow, of very high evolution, and they take the time to come here to teach us, to explain to us, and always with great humility. So he said, right? Oh, for us here it is a pleasure to be here and to be able to communicate with all of you today, right? And then I asked him if he was present with us, because since he is from this planet, right? I wondered, could it be that he was here energetically, right? Since he belongs to our spiritual sphere of the planet. And I also asked how he communicated with me, right? And then he said, yes, we are here today, because we are spirits and we blow where we want and we no longer have forms. We are energy. Can you understand that? Difficult, right? Well, then he said, I was like, I was left with that load of scenery, right? And then he said, we know that for your minds this is difficult to understand, so we assume forms that you can understand. Then I said, so then they must assume the Adamic form, which is our form here, right? So that we could then better understand them as beings, right? And then he said, that's right. Do you understand the concept, my daughter? We assume an Adamic form like your beloved Christ. He is also pure energy, but he takes on this Adamic form because you are all still children, otherwise you wouldn't understand him, right? And look at him, even though he came to incarnate among us, many people still don't understand what he said. Imagine if he appeared as an energy, then people wouldn't understand anything, right? But that's it. So he said goodbye, right? With great joy, right? And the concept they have of us here is that we are all children. They see us as children in development, right? And then he left, right? And I stayed there savoring that master class he had just given. And then, guys, our dear captain came. And because the captain, guys, he's wonderful, right? He's part of the Second Empire team, he always helps me, he's my dear mentor. And he comes like this, he's closer to us, right? And he explains many things to me that sometimes I get a little lost. He comes, finishes things off, explains better, Well, his participation here in our work is very, very important, very important. And he came and told me. I said, look, can you imagine the caliber of the entity that presented itself here? There was so much light here that it brought us great well-being and much joy. And the entire team that works, with me here in the astral, which is the team of the Second Empire, I've already told you this, the entire team felt their paraspirits being cleansed and relieved, so that we are all softer, less dense and with a great feeling of peace and joy. And we here on the team never imagined that this simple and humble work would bring us so much knowledge and benefits. And we are all very excited here. And then he said, and you were also benefited. You don't notice it so much because you are incarnated. And this flesh suit prevents you from realizing what you are receiving, but everything is being recorded in the ether. And when you, me in this case, disincarnate, what will happen in many years? Good thing, guys. You will have to put up with me here for a long time. You will be able to watch everything and you will be amazed. Then I thought, right, I said, wow, I will have to work a lot in the astral to be able to have those bonus hours to be able to watch all these recordings, right? And then he said, oh, but are you really silly? Of course you will be able to watch them, because they are part of your incarnation. Quote, I said, oh, that's right, right? It's something that is happening to me, it's part of my incarnation. I won't need to pay the bonus hour to be able to watch them. Who is already a spiritist who has already watched or read the book Na Solar? All these wonderful books, right? Violetta's Na Janela also explains this in a fantastic way, right? Hey, you know what I'm talking about, right? So, I was really excited, right? And the dear captain was saying goodbye, and I'm also going to take the opportunity to say goodbye to you with great joy. And I'm Louise Castanhedo. I'll wait for you in the next episode here on this channel. See you then. He